The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful one. In fact, the people who constantly talk, explain themselves, seek attention, and react emotionally are usually exposing far more weakness than they realize. Truly powerful individuals move differently. They do not feel the need to announce their intelligence, prove their value, or dominate every conversation because real power does not depend on attention. And the moment you understand this, you begin seeing human behavior completely differently. Most people have been conditioned to believe that confidence means speaking more, reacting faster, and always having something to say. Society rewards noise. Social media rewards visibility. Modern culture rewards constant expression. But psychologically, the people who speak the least often hold the most control because silence creates observation, emotional discipline, and psychological presence. And those qualities immediately separate someone from the average person. The truth is that people reveal themselves constantly through words. Every unnecessary explanation, every emotional reaction, every attempt to seek validation exposes information about their emotional state. Weak individuals often speak impulsively because they cannot control their emotions internally. They feel the need to defend themselves instantly, prove themselves instantly, and respond emotionally to everything around them. But emotionally disciplined people understand that once you lose control of your emotions, you also lose control of the situation. That is why calm individuals naturally appear more powerful socially. They observe before reacting. They think before speaking. And because they do not constantly reveal themselves emotionally, people become curious about them automatically. Human beings are naturally drawn toward mystery. The less predictable someone becomes emotionally, the more attention they silently attract. Most people never realize how much talking weakens their presence. The more someone speaks unnecessarily, the more their words lose value over time. But when someone speaks selectively, every word carries weight. Silence creates tension, and tension creates attention. This is why quiet individuals are often listened to more carefully when they finally decide to speak. Their words feel intentional instead of impulsive. Many people confuse silence with insecurity because they do not understand psychological control. They assume that calm people are weak simply because they are not loud. But emotional discipline is one of the rarest forms of strength in modern society. Almost everyone reacts impulsively now. People react online, react emotionally, react to criticism, react to opinions, react to temporary feelings without ever stopping to think clearly first. But the individual who remains calm while everyone else loses emotional control immediately stands out psychologically. If you enjoy deep content about emotional discipline, human behavior, silent confidence, and psychological power, subscribe to Psychology of Silence and leave a like on this video. The people who master silence often understand the world in ways most people never will. Silence gives people power because silence creates emotional control. And emotional control changes everything. Most individuals are controlled externally. Their emotions change depending on how people treat them, whether they feel accepted socially, whether they receive validation, or whether someone challenges their ego. Their emotional state constantly depends on external circumstances. But powerful people build internal stability instead. They stop allowing every opinion, criticism, or emotional situation to control their mind. That internal stability becomes visible socially even without words. People can feel emotional discipline instinctively. There is something naturally intimidating about someone who remains calm under pressure. Not because they appear aggressive, but because they appear difficult to influence emotionally. And people fear what they cannot control. The average person speaks constantly because silence makes them uncomfortable. Silence forces self-awareness. It removes distraction. It exposes insecurity. That is why nervous people overtalk, insecure people overshare, and emotionally reactive people constantly seek validation through conversation. Many individuals are not speaking because they have something important to say. They are speaking because silence forces them to confront themselves internally. Powerful individuals become comfortable with silence because silence sharpens observation. When you stop trying to dominate every conversation, you begin noticing things other people completely miss. You notice insecurity hidden behind confidence. You notice emotional instability hidden behind arrogance. You notice manipulation, jealousy, desperation for attention, and hidden intentions because you are no longer distracted by your own need to perform socially. And observation creates social intelligence. The people who understand human behavior best are usually not the loudest people in the room. They are the observers, the listeners, the individuals studying emotional patterns quietly while everyone else exposes themselves through impulsive reactions and unnecessary words. Most people reveal their weaknesses automatically when they feel emotional pressure. They reveal impatience, insecurity, ego, fear of rejection, need for approval, and the silent observer notices all of it. This is why speaking less increases psychological power. The less emotionally reactive you become, the harder you are to manipulate. Emotional people are predictable because their reactions are easy to control. The moment someone knows what triggers your anger, insecurity, frustration, or ego, they gain psychological influence over you. But calm individuals are difficult to manipulate because they create distance between emotion and reaction. They pause. They observe. They analyze situations before responding emotionally. That level of emotional restraint creates enormous social advantage because most people completely lack discipline over their emotions. They say things impulsively during moments of anger. They expose themselves emotionally during moments of insecurity. They destroy opportunities, relationships, and respect because they lacked self-control during critical moments. But disciplined people understand that temporary emotions should never control permanent decisions. There is also a reason powerful people rarely explain themselves excessively. Over-explaining often comes from insecurity. When someone constantly feels the need to justify themselves to everyone around them, they unconsciously communicate dependence on external approval. But emotionally grounded individuals understand that not everyone needs to understand them. They do not waste energy trying to convince people constantly because true confidence does not seek endless validation. And ironically, the less validation someone seeks, the more respect they often gain socially. Because emotional independence feels powerful. People naturally admire individuals who remain centered without depending emotionally on the reactions of others. In a world addicted to attention, emotional restraint becomes rare, and rare qualities automatically create value. This is why silence often feels stronger than aggression. Aggression usually comes from emotional instability. Truly powerful people rarely need to prove their strength loudly because control itself already communicates strength. A calm person who remains emotionally disciplined under pressure often appears far more intimidating than someone constantly trying to dominate emotionally. Because calmness signals certainty, while emotional chaos signals weakness internally. Over time, silence transforms the way a person moves through life. You stop reacting to everything emotionally. You stop feeling the need to defend yourself constantly. You stop chasing validation from people who do not understand your value. Instead, you become more intentional with your words, your energy, your emotions, and your attention. And that shift changes how people perceive your presence completely. Because the people with the strongest minds are usually not the loudest. They are the calmest. Calm people understand something emotionally reactive individuals never fully realize. Silence protects power. The more emotionally exposed a person becomes, the easier they are to influence psychologically. Every impulsive reaction gives people information. Every emotional outburst reveals vulnerability. Every desperate attempt to be understood exposes emotional dependence on external approval. But silence removes that access. Silence creates emotional distance, and emotional distance creates control. This is why emotionally disciplined individuals often seem unreadable. And unreadable people naturally create tension in social environments because human beings constantly try to predict behavior. The brain searches for patterns, emotional signals, and reactions in order to feel psychologically comfortable. But when someone remains calm, controlled, and selective with their words, people struggle to fully understand them. And the moment people cannot fully read you, they begin paying closer attention automatically. Most individuals unknowingly weaken their own presence because they speak from emotion instead of intention. They speak to release frustration, speak to seek validation, speak to defend their ego, speak to fill silence because silence makes them nervous internally. But powerful individuals use words carefully because they understand that words lose value when they are used without discipline. Silence gives weight to speech. The less frequently someone speaks unnecessarily, the more impact their words tend to carry when they finally do. This is also why powerful people rarely argue emotionally for long periods of time. They understand that many arguments are not about truth at all. They are emotional battles driven by ego, insecurity, and the desperate need to feel right. Emotionally reactive people become trapped inside these cycles because they cannot separate emotion from logic. But disciplined individuals recognize when silence becomes more valuable than continuing a pointless exchange. They protect their peace instead of sacrificing it to temporary emotional situations. And that level of emotional restraint often frustrates emotionally unstable people. Some individuals become uncomfortable when they realize they cannot emotionally provoke you easily. They expect reactions because reactions give them a sense of psychological control. But when someone remains calm under pressure, the entire emotional dynamic changes. Suddenly, the emotionally reactive person begins losing certainty, while the calm individual maintains control internally. This is why silence can completely shift power during social interactions without a single aggressive word being spoken. The reality is that emotionally weak people often expose themselves through excessive talking. The more insecure someone becomes internally, the more they often feel the need to constantly prove themselves externally. They exaggerate, over-explain, seek attention, dominate conversations, constantly search for recognition because their confidence depends heavily on outside validation. But internally secure people move differently. They do not feel pressure to perform constantly because their sense of value is not dependent on how much attention they receive from others. This creates a completely different type of energy socially. Quiet confidence feels stable, grounded, controlled. Loud confidence often feels fragile because it depends on external reactions to survive. That is why calm people naturally appear more mature psychologically. They are less controlled by impulse, less controlled by ego, less controlled by emotional instability. And people instinctively trust emotional stability more than emotional chaos. There is also a reason silence improves awareness dramatically. When you stop constantly reacting and speaking impulsively, your mind becomes clearer. You begin seeing situations more objectively instead of emotionally. You notice manipulation faster. You notice emotional patterns faster. You notice who genuinely respects you and who only respects emotional access to you. Most people cannot see clearly because their emotions constantly cloud their judgment. But calm individuals create mental distance from situations before reacting, and that distance creates clarity. Clarity is dangerous in a world built on distraction. Most people never stop long enough to truly observe themselves or the people around them. They remain trapped inside endless stimulation, emotional reactions, social pressure, and constant noise. But silence breaks that cycle. Silence reconnects people with awareness again. It forces observation, reflection, patience, and those qualities slowly strengthen emotional discipline over time. That is why silence often feels uncomfortable at first. It exposes everything people were trying to avoid internally: insecurity, fear, restlessness, need for validation, emotional dependence. Many individuals stay constantly distracted because distraction protects them from confronting themselves honestly. But emotionally disciplined people slowly become comfortable with stillness because they understand that growth requires self-awareness, and self-awareness requires silence. The more comfortable you become with silence, the less desperate you become for approval. You stop feeling the need to explain every decision. You stop reacting emotionally to every opinion. You stop trying to convince everyone of your value because internal certainty replaces external dependence gradually. And once that happens, people begin feeling your presence differently without understanding exactly why. Because real presence is not created through noise. It is created through emotional control. Some people walk into a room and immediately demand attention through loudness, emotional intensity, or exaggerated confidence. But others walk into a room quietly and somehow shift the atmosphere without saying much at all. That difference comes from internal stability. People can feel when someone is emotionally grounded. They can feel when someone is not desperate for validation. And they can feel when someone has mastered themselves internally. That is why the most powerful individuals often appear calm instead of emotional. They understand that emotional reactions give away power unnecessarily. Every impulsive response creates vulnerability. Every unnecessary explanation creates exposure. But silence protects emotional energy while strengthening psychological control. Over time, disciplined individuals learn that not every opinion deserves attention, not every situation deserves emotion, and not every challenge deserves a reaction. And once a person truly understands this, their entire behavior changes. They begin speaking with intention instead of impulse, listening more than talking, observing more than reacting, thinking more than performing. While emotionally reactive people continue exposing themselves through endless noise, the calm observer continues building influence quietly because they understand something most people never will. Silence does not weaken presence. It sharpens it. The frightening part is that most people never recognize how much control they lose simply because they cannot remain silent emotionally. The moment someone becomes angry, defensive, desperate for attention, or emotionally reactive, they hand psychological control to the situation around them. Their emotions begin making decisions for them. Their impulses begin controlling their behavior. And over time, this creates a person who is constantly manipulated by external circumstances without even realizing it. Emotionally disciplined individuals understand that silence is not about avoiding expression completely. It is about choosing expression carefully. There is a massive difference between speaking with intention and speaking impulsively. Most people speak to release emotion. Powerful people speak to communicate purpose. And because they do not waste words constantly, their presence becomes more impactful naturally. This is why calm people often appear more intelligent socially even when they are not speaking much. Human beings instinctively associate emotional composure with competence because emotional control requires awareness. The average person reacts automatically to whatever they feel in the moment. But disciplined individuals separate feeling from action. They understand that emotions are temporary, but decisions made under emotional pressure can create permanent consequences. Many individuals destroy respect through unnecessary emotional reactions. They allow temporary frustration to expose insecurity. They allow ego to control their words. They allow anger to remove self-control completely. And afterward, they often regret what they said because emotional impulsiveness rarely creates clarity. It creates damage. But silence creates space for awareness. It creates time to think clearly before emotion takes control completely. And in today's world, that level of restraint is extremely rare. People are encouraged to react instantly to everything, instantly defend themselves, instantly express outrage, instantly seek attention, instantly expose every emotion publicly. But psychologically, this constant impulsiveness weakens emotional discipline over time because people slowly lose the ability to regulate themselves internally. They become emotionally dependent on expression itself. And emotional dependence always creates vulnerability. That is why emotionally grounded individuals become increasingly selective as they mature. Selective with who they trust. Selective with where they place attention. Selective with their words. Selective with their emotional energy. Because they understand that peace disappears the moment they allow emotionally chaotic people unlimited access to their mind. Most people underestimate how contagious emotional instability actually is. Spend enough time around reactive individuals and eventually their emotional chaos begins affecting your own clarity. Constant noise destroys focus. Constant drama destroys peace. Constant emotional impulsiveness destroys discipline. But silence protects mental stability because silence creates distance from unnecessary emotional stimulation. This is one reason quiet individuals often appear more focused than others. Their mind is not constantly consumed by social performance. They are not wasting energy trying to impress everyone around them. They are not reacting emotionally to every opinion, criticism, or challenge. Instead, they conserve emotional energy carefully. And conserved energy becomes focus. Focus becomes discipline. And discipline becomes power. Most people want power externally before mastering themselves internally. They want influence without emotional control. Respect without discipline. Presence without self-awareness. But true psychological strength begins with self-mastery. The ability to control your emotions, your words, your impulses, and your attention even when life becomes uncomfortable. And silence trains all of these qualities simultaneously. Because silence forces patience. It forces observation. It forces emotional regulation. The average person struggles deeply with these things because modern life constantly rewards distraction. People rarely sit alone with their thoughts anymore. They avoid stillness because stillness exposes emotional discomfort they were trying to escape through stimulation. But disciplined individuals slowly become comfortable with solitude and silence because they understand that clarity grows in quiet environments, not noisy ones. Over time, silence changes how you see human behavior entirely. You begin realizing that many people are not truly confident at all. They are simply loud enough to hide insecurity temporarily. You begin noticing how often arrogance is actually emotional weakness disguised as strength. Truly secure individuals rarely need to dominate others emotionally because they already feel stable internally. But insecure people constantly seek control externally because internally they feel unstable. This is why the calmest person in the room often holds the most psychological power. Calmness under pressure signals internal certainty. And internal certainty cannot be easily manipulated. People may challenge your opinions, challenge your decisions, challenge your presence. But if they cannot emotionally destabilize you, they cannot truly control you psychologically. And that changes every social interaction. The less emotionally reactive you become, the more difficult you are to influence through fear, pressure, manipulation, or validation. Most people can be controlled emotionally because they are desperate to protect their ego, their image, or their need for approval. But emotionally independent individuals no longer depend heavily on external reactions to maintain internal stability. Their peace comes from self-control, not social validation. That is why silence often feels stronger than speaking endlessly. Silence communicates certainty without needing constant proof. It communicates emotional discipline without demanding recognition. And perhaps most importantly, silence reveals who is truly in control of themselves when pressure appears. Because pressure exposes emotional truth faster than comfort ever will. Anyone can appear composed when life is easy. Anyone can appear confident when nothing challenges them emotionally. But difficult moments reveal reality. They reveal who immediately loses emotional control and who remains centered despite chaos. They reveal who reacts impulsively and who thinks clearly under pressure. And those moments quietly separate emotionally disciplined individuals from emotionally reactive ones. The people who master silence understand that emotional reactions are temporary, but reputation is long-term. One moment of impulsiveness can destroy years of respect. One uncontrolled emotional response can expose weakness instantly. But disciplined individuals move carefully because they understand the value of restraint. They understand that sometimes the strongest response is no emotional response at all. And that mindset changes everything. Because once a person learns how to remain emotionally grounded while the world constantly tries to pull reactions out of them, they stop living impulsively. They stop being controlled by temporary feelings. They stop depending on noise for validation. Instead, they begin operating with clarity, patience, observation, and intention while everyone else continues exposing themselves through emotional chaos. As this emotional discipline grows, something interesting begins happening. People start treating you differently even when you say less than before. Not because you demanded respect verbally, but because emotional control changes the energy a person carries. That is why silence and awareness are deeply connected. A noisy mind rarely observes clearly. An emotionally reactive person rarely notices subtle psychological dynamics happening around them because they are too consumed by their own emotions internally. But disciplined individuals create mental distance from situations before reacting, and that distance allows them to see reality more objectively. Eventually, silence becomes a form of emotional intelligence itself. Not passive silence, not fearful silence, but intentional silence. The kind of silence built on self-control, observation, patience, and awareness. A person who develops this type of discipline no longer feels pressure to constantly prove themselves socially because they understand that true confidence is quiet. It does not beg for attention. It does not chase validation. And it does not collapse emotionally the moment life becomes difficult. This is why some individuals can remain calm even when surrounded by chaos. Their stability comes from internal control rather than external circumstances. Most people rely on comfort to feel emotionally stable, which means the moment comfort disappears, so does their emotional balance. But disciplined individuals build stability internally first. They train themselves to remain centered even during uncertainty, pressure, and emotional tension. And once someone reaches that level psychologically, they begin operating differently from the average person entirely. They become less reactive, less impulsive, less emotionally dependent, and far more intentional. At the same time, they begin noticing how emotionally driven most human behavior actually is. Many people make decisions based on ego without realizing it. Many seek attention because they fear insignificance internally. Many become aggressive because they lack emotional control. Many overtalk because silence exposes insecurity they are trying to avoid confronting. Once you begin observing these patterns repeatedly, human behavior becomes far easier to understand. And understanding human behavior changes social interactions completely. You stop taking everything personally because you recognize that many reactions come from internal struggles people are fighting within themselves. You stop wasting energy trying to change emotionally immature individuals. You stop reacting impulsively to negativity because you realize emotionally reactive people often reveal more about themselves than about you. That awareness creates emotional detachment, and emotional detachment creates peace. Peace becomes extremely valuable once a person realizes how rare it truly is. Most people live internally restless lives. Their mind constantly searches for stimulation, validation, distraction, and emotional certainty. But silence slowly teaches people how to become comfortable without needing constant external noise. And the moment someone becomes comfortable internally without depending on endless stimulation, they gain a level of psychological freedom most people never experience. Because freedom begins the moment your emotions stop controlling your behavior. And once a person reaches that level of emotional freedom, the world begins affecting them differently. Criticism no longer destroys their peace. Rejection no longer controls their self-worth. Attention no longer becomes a necessity. They stop living emotionally dependent on the reactions of other people because their stability is no longer built on external validation. And this is exactly why emotionally disciplined individuals often appear powerful without trying to appear powerful at all. Most people spend years chasing confidence externally without realizing confidence is actually built internally through self-control. A person who cannot control their impulses will eventually lose control of their decisions. A person who cannot control their emotions will eventually lose control of their behavior. But someone who learns how to remain calm, observant, and emotionally grounded during difficult situations develops a type of confidence that cannot easily be shaken by the outside world. That confidence feels different because it is not performative. It does not need constant recognition to survive. Loud individuals often rely heavily on attention to maintain their sense of importance, which is why they constantly seek reactions from people around them. But calm individuals become less attached to social validation over time because silence teaches them something extremely important. The need to constantly prove yourself disappears the moment you truly know your own value. And that realization changes the way people carry themselves completely. They stop entering conversations trying to impress everyone. They stop reacting emotionally to every disagreement. They stop defending themselves unnecessarily. They stop wasting emotional energy on meaningless conflicts. Instead, they become more patient, more intentional, and far more difficult to emotionally disturb. This is why silence often creates deeper respect than constant talking ever could. Talking can attract attention quickly, but emotional discipline earns long-term respect because people eventually notice who remains stable under pressure and who collapses emotionally the moment life becomes uncomfortable. Pressure always reveals reality. It exposes who truly controls themselves and who only appeared confident when circumstances were easy. And the people who speak the least are often the people thinking the most. While emotionally reactive individuals rush to speak impulsively, disciplined people observe first. They analyze situations carefully. They listen closely. They notice emotional patterns others completely ignore. This allows them to make better decisions because their mind is not controlled entirely by temporary emotion. Most mistakes in life happen during emotional moments when logic disappears and impulse takes over. But silence slows that process down. It creates space for awareness before reaction. That awareness becomes a massive advantage socially because human behavior is incredibly predictable once emotions begin controlling people. Insecurity creates over-explaining. Ego creates defensiveness. Fear creates aggression. Desperation creates attention-seeking behavior. Emotionally unstable individuals constantly expose themselves through these patterns without realizing it. Meanwhile, calm individuals continue observing quietly, learning more about people than people realize they are revealing. This is why emotionally intelligent people often value silence so highly. Silence gives them information. Silence protects their energy. Silence strengthens their emotional control. And perhaps most importantly, silence prevents unnecessary emotional damage caused by impulsive reactions. Many people regret words spoken during emotional moments because once words leave your mouth, they cannot be taken back. But disciplined individuals understand that not every thought deserves expression and not every emotion deserves action. The modern world rarely teaches this level of restraint anymore. People are encouraged to constantly express themselves, constantly react publicly, constantly seek visibility and emotional validation. But emotionally disciplined people slowly move in the opposite direction. They become calmer, more selective, more private, more intentional with their energy because they understand that peace becomes impossible when your emotions are controlled by everything happening around you. And over time, this emotional control begins creating a completely different presence. People start feeling your calmness before you even speak. Your energy feels stable. Your reactions feel controlled. Your words feel deliberate instead of impulsive. And that combination naturally creates authority because emotional stability is something people instinctively admire, even if they cannot fully explain why. There is something powerful about a person who does not panic under pressure. Something powerful about a person who does not desperately seek approval. Something powerful about a person who can remain silent while everyone else feels the need to prove themselves constantly. Because silence reflects inner control. And inner control is one of the rarest forms of strength a human being can develop. Most people spend their entire lives trying to control the world around them while completely failing to control themselves internally. But the people who master silence understand that true power begins within. It begins with controlling your emotions instead of allowing emotions to control you. It begins with observing instead of reacting impulsively. It begins with protecting your peace instead of sacrificing it for temporary emotional satisfaction. And once someone truly understands this, they stop moving like everyone else. They stop chasing noise, stop chasing validation, stop chasing attention. Instead, they become calm enough to think clearly while others lose themselves emotionally. And that is exactly why the most powerful people often speak the least. If you made it this far, comment "Silence wins" below. I want to know who truly understands the psychology behind calmness, emotional discipline, and silent power.